Good morning. Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I'm Deana. It is great to see you. Happy Monday. Right at the beginning of the week again. Lots of chances to do good things this week, right? I'm actually not feeling well at all today. Like I actually feel sick today. So we'll see how it goes. I'm going to last as long as I can, but I wanted to come on because I wanted to continue our conversation about Grace Collette specifically and that showcase at the Green Mountain Rug Show, and to share some weekend stuff and catch up with a bunch of things. Good morning, everybody. Carol, great to see you in Wisconsin. You know, I just said to Teddy the other night, because Kaz brought all kinds of goodies for us from Wisconsin, and chocolate was one of them. Every time I have this, I'm going to sit down. Every time I have this Wisconsin chocolate, I think, what is going on over there? It's got to be the dairy stuff, right? It's got to be, yeah, like the Wisconsin is Laverne and Shirley territory too, right? This chocolate is like so much better than, I mean, eating this chocolate is making me think that like people in Switzerland are crying themselves to sleep because it is so good. It is so different tasting, and it is so good. I'm just pulling up a note from my buddy Jane because she gave me a bunch of things to remind me to say, right? Especially when my brain is not working well. Um, I don't know what's going on in Wisconsin, Carol. I'm going to have to come and investigate. Robin, there you are too. Speaking of Wisconsin, great to see you. And Sharon, great to see you. Sunny and cold in Vancouver. I bet. I can't believe how cold it is in Canada already. I mean, I know different parts, of course. It's a huge country. I can't believe getting reports from my buddy Linda Ann. Maybe Linda Ann is on. It is incredibly cold, and it has been for a little while. I mean, it's just you are tough people, man. You are toughies. Barbara, great to see you in Orlando. Linda B in New Jersey, great to see you. Linda H in Massachusetts, great to see you. Let me see. April, great to see you. Happy Monday. Jane, there you are. Happy Monday. Well, let's get started with announcements and stuff like that. I posted this late. Hopefully, that was not too bad. I was kind of on the fence about what I was going to do. Jane, thank you for sending me these reminders. So, gallery night is coming up this coming Friday. So be sure to send me your gallery night rugs. If they're done, if you're working on them, if it's just a germ of an idea, send the idea. Maybe we can hash it out together, you know. Oh, Betty, great to see you. Good morning in Oklahoma. Great to see you. Yeah, send along the rugs to ribboncandyhooking at gmail.com, and anything you've got going. So, you know, it's good to have a good old, as Jane would say, natter um, chat to build up ideas and thoughts, and use our collective knowledge to plan, right? That's always fun. We did that with the Boris rug, which we're going to see the end result of at gallery night. But send those rugs, and listen, if you have stories that go with the rugs, even if it's a long story, send it to me, because there's nothing I like more than a story rug. And if it has your story attached to it, it'll be even more special for all of us. So make sure that you do that. Be brave and just hit that send button, right? That's like, yeah, just do it. Kathy, great to see you. And Karen, Anita, great to see you. Joy, great to see everybody this morning. So gallery night rugs. Okay, so this the new Zoom Design Light class that has been announced. It is running kind of different days. I'm trying something different this time. The evening of Wednesday the 30th, and that is 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Friday, December 2nd, 1 to 3 Eastern Standard Time. That is designing like the great pattern makers, where we are learning how to do repeat patterns like William Morris, kind of seamless sort of textile designs like Annie Albers, tessellated designs like Escher. Not that complicated, right? Just the principle of how do you do it. That's what we're doing in that class. This coming Sunday, I teach at Madison, Connecticut. So that will be a punch needle class. That's coming up this coming Sunday, working on a design I have called Plains, no, called Path Through the Mountains. It's one of the ones from the Helen Albee collection that we were talking about last year. and the advent calendar, right? If you haven't gotten yours yet, make sure you order it. I'm putting these together like crazy. I can't believe how many boxes there are. There's 24 per person. So I've like a one. I love Lucy. It's an I love Lucy episode in the studio with the chocolates, right? I'm moving as fast as I can with that, and they're going to be coming out in the next couple days for sure. So make sure you order yours. There's absolutely plenty. Cup of cheer. Okay, so a bunch of people are also ordering cup of cheer. I want to talk about that in a second. And turkey lurkey is still there. I've finished turkey lurkey, so I'm going to have to photograph that and send it to you. Let's look at this cup of cheer because it's been so much fun. You know, I had this on my desk too because I was reminded I need to finish it because for whatever reason, a bunch of people have been buying the coffee time mat lately, and I haven't even finished mine yet. I'm going to finish the edges in a video to give you another shorter finishing thing, but a bunch of people have been ordering this. It must be the way that the searches come up. I never understand algorithms, but I put the sorry ribbon in it now, so I got to be real careful about blocking it and finishing it. But that's a lot of fun. A nice mat for your coffee mug when we get together in the mornings, right? Shannon, great to see you. Um, you know, this cup of cheer, I'm pretty finished. I left a little corner because I'm still going to do a couple of videos about it. It got me going on a few thoughts, and I put into the corners the 20. I haven't finished this corner, but I did the 2022 in the corner. That's optional, and of course the cheer, which I'm so desperately needing at this moment, um, is all done in paisley. So you're going to get a bunch of pieces of paisley. I went down the sides, and you know what the monitor's like with the early morning light. It's really bright. Different colors on both sides. So those will be 10 different colors here, and then the mottled background. Now, the tree is two different greens, and I had the thought over the weekend, the tree is too boring. What can I do with the tree? So it could be left like this, of course, but then I had the bright idea to go to my local store's Joann's. We have a Michael's too, but the Joann's is the bigger one for me. So I went over there knowing that it's like, you know, the coupon situation drives me crazy, but they're always, you know, they're super helpful. You always feel like an outsider if you're not organized about the coupons because everything is quite expensive. Unless you get the coupons, then you feel like they made a mistake and you robbed them. Cat's Gallery, great to see you. Good morning. So I went in there and I started thinking about this Christmas tree. And I started thinking, do you remember, and there isn't a name for it, but do you remember how, or have you seen how in the sort of mid-century 1940s through 1960s, it was very popular as a craft for women to make, people to make jewelry Christmas trees. And they were usually not dimensional. It was usually in like a standard picture frame, but there would be like a velvet backing, and the tree would be the shape of all of these pins and like um, you know, earrings, like one earring that you lost the other one from the pair, like carefully positioned onto a velvet backing to make the shape of a tree. Do you know what I'm talking about? They were so popular, and when I see them in antique stores I pick them up because I feel like it's number one, a real personal collection of someone's jewelry, costume jewelry, and it's so festive. They are so blingy. So I love finding those and seeing those, and I thought, I think we're onto something here because doesn't everybody, Lynn, great to see you in chilly Tucson. Um, doesn't everybody have single pairs of earrings and pins that have lost some stones that are just not worth replacing? Or like a thrift store near you where you can pick up like one of those big glass jars for like a song filled with jewels. So I was thinking about that, and I want to evolve that idea further. But I wanted to do something that is basically just that idea, and I haven't hatched it completely yet, so that's a to be continued. But as far as this tree in the cup of cheer, I thought, why don't I bling that out in a similar manner? Because at the moment it's two colors of green, and I've got like three different colors of like wine, Bordeaux, aubergine, sorry ribbon going across it as a garland. And I thought, let me just pop to Joann's and see what I can see, right? Because I'm not really there in my head with locating all my lost jewelry bits and pieces. So I thought, let me see what they've got. And they had some amazing things. So I picked up stuff like this. This brand Pop, you probably know, does all kinds of crazy sequins. I mean, they also have mixed packs. These are probably available on Amazon too. I don't know why it's not coming into focus, but these are snowflakes, right? And they're like a little bit pink, a little bit opal, kind of holographic looking. I don't know if I'm going to use those, but I really liked them. I got a bunch of these guys, also Pop. Pop seems to be, they have done some kind of a deal with Joann's. And these are resealable bags, which is kind of nice because you know the story of when the bag is just permanently open, particularly if you have a cat and then stuff is like all over the floor permanently. But like these kinds of little flat, um, again, kind of holographic, but rainbow pom-poms. I thought, okay, well, that is something. They're super colorful. I bought all the bags that they had because I thought that's super blingy. I also had a pattern. I'm going to have to locate it. It was the ugly sweater pattern I put out either last year or the year before, either as three little ornaments. It was like the shape of a sweater, and it came with just mixed bling. So you could like either one big one or three little ornaments. So the big one would be frameable, or you could turn it into like something that hangs, or several would make a garland. But I'm thinking all of this blingy stuff from Joann's would be great to make the miniature ugly sweaters too. So I'll have to post those again. Um, Found stuff like this, which I think is really handy to attach to a little tree, some three-dimensional stars, but they were in silver and gold color and different kinds of designs and different sizes. So I thought, oh, that's good. And then there were these guys. This is another brand. I hope that you have a Joann's or a Michael's near you, something like that. Maybe, I don't know if Hobby Lobby does this too. The Hildy and Joe. This is like the other big brand for blinging stuff out. Um, Sorry, my phone is going a little crazy. Hey, Cindy. I love the pom-poms too. I love how wild they're colored. I got to get a new camera, right? I think this one has like had its heyday. So these little guys sew on, and they're quite small, but you know they were like $5 before the coupon even hit, so they were even less for 12 of them. I mean, I thought that was pretty good. Here comes the pièce de résistance right here. This is what I'm putting on that tree. Probably these two things together, but I thought these were insane little jobbies, right? 6 charms. Those were, I think, 10, but with coupons. This is probably the combo that I'm going to put on my little cup of cheer tree. I think it is going to bling it out big time. So I'm really excited about that because I love this pattern, and I just felt like the tree was a bit lackluster. I got this big paisley mug, got these nice soft colors happening. I got this spot dyed background, and I just felt like the tree needed a good old punch, right? So I'm going to do that, and I'll do some videos. I'm going to do a video on this idea as well. But can you see around the border how I did? I think I did 4 different colors of plaid, quite thick, more like a 10 cut. Um, and I'm working on primitive linen, so that worked fine because it's quite loose. But um, I just feel like with Christmas stuff or holiday stuff in general, somehow using plaid, particularly in like the greens, the blues, the reds, feels like a neutral. I don't know how that works. It's like a mental substitution, isn't it? Because you associate like plaids with like tree skirts, clothing, dresses, whatever. I associate it with my Catholic schoolgirl uniform, Christmas pageants, things like that. Plaid to me at this time of year serves as a neutral, and I just thought interesting how that works because in other times of years I don't think I would feel that way, but it got me thinking, about patterned and textured wools and why at certain times of the year some of them feel like they're go-to fabrics, like for absolutely anything, like it's impossible to overdo it. I thought interesting. So I'm going to evolve those ideas, and I'll tell you what I come up with. You know what else I got that I thought was interesting? Try these glasses for a minute. um, because I'm teaching that punch needle class in Madison this weekend, I got thinking I always give hoops, right? I always give a hoop and the punch. And I always bring a bunch of those small um, self adhesive gauzes. They come like on Amazon, you can get a pack of 30 of them for nothing. And they're all different colors. So I usually give each person an individual pack of that gauze to wrap around the bottom of their hoop so that their piece stays really tight while they're punching. And it always works, right? There's varying levels of success when we do this, but that's punching in general, I think. I always find it a little bit harder to teach completely beginner punching than hooking, right? Just the nature of it. There's a few more things that can go wrong. But I thought, you know what, this time I am going to try. I picked up a set of these canvases. They're not huge, but they would be perfect for what we're doing because it's a fairly small piece. And as you can see I haven't opened them yet, but on the back, The stretcher part, right, the wooden part is not huge, because sometimes you see these stretchers and they come right out to the middle of the piece. And if that's the case and you're trying to turn it into some kind of punching or hooking frame, if the edges are coming out like this, you have hardly any room to do your, punching or hooking. So that doesn't make sense. These had this nice small border around them. They were a good price. It was something like 20 for this, so that's like two each. Could be better, and then I used coupons. But they're just like the super value series. They looked quite good to me, so I can see that they're joined with like a wooden piece in the corners. They're not just stapled, like there's actually a join in there. So I thought, you know what I'm going to do probably later today? I'm going to pop these out. I'm going to cut off the canvas. I'll probably leave the canvas here for strength, because why not? But I'll cut out the piece, on the front that's for painting. I'll save it because it might turn in that it comes in handy for something later that I haven't thought of yet. And I'm going to sew around the edges of my monk's cloth and staple gun it on there and have a go and see how tight I can get it. And if that could be a good thing to do for that beginner class, because if they can punch their pieces right onto these frames and that works even better than the hoop, then in theory they could, they could leave the edges bare, couldn't they? And like just hang it up the way that it is. Or just take a screwdriver and pop out the staples, right? So they could get it off and finish it in a different way, a more traditional rug way. But I thought it's worth giving it a shot, isn't it? I'm gonna give it a shot. This is something that I wrote about with the first book that I did, and I used upholstery tacks in the book. And that's easy too, but upholstery tacks are expensive. So just something to think about. Sparkle thread could help too with the garland. Well, funny you said that, Karen, because I forgot to show this little guy. They had this in all different colors. Thread is good. This is like, it's called North Pole Yarn Company. It's a Lion. It's a Lion brand yarn. So this must be their seasonal line. North Pole Yarn Company, and it's just called Tinsel. And they had it in lots of colors, but this was the only silver. And I thought, it's like this. It's like an eyelash, right? Super synthetic. It's very stiff, but pretty. It's got a lot of sparkle. So this would be excellent as a garland. And with other colors, you could two-ply it, right? Or even more, twist it up pretty good. I mean, there's going to be others too. This was just one that was on an end cap. And I thought, interesting, that could really work. Sharon says, I've done that with the dollar store frames, but I took out the staples. I would like to try it with primitive linen. Yeah, I'm still kind of on the fence about whether I do want to staple it or whether I want to do something with tacks. I don't have to use the upholstery tacks. They're just pretty to look at and they're nice. They're usually domed and not sharp. But there's also those tacks that are from like the hardware store that have quite a big round, completely flat head. I could use those. Or if you remember when I went over to Joanne Wood's place, on her frame, she just had like the tall, skinny, like picture hanging ones without a big head sticking out. She must be very used to not touching that or scraping against that. She must be very used to that. But this is a beginner class, so I'm going to be careful. But I'm still thinking it through. I can try some different things with the different frames, but I thought it's gonna be interesting to see how this goes. I know my good friend Rebecca from Storyteller Wool. She does stuff with. I can't remember if she's using frames or hoops, but she glues the piece right on there, and it's a many-stepped process. And she is so good because this is very time-intensive what she does. I'm looking for something that isn't going to take me a week to prep because I got to get those advent calendars and all your other orders going. So interesting. I'll let you know how it goes, and if it goes well, I'll make a video to show you all, because it might be that if this worked, right, and for example, their piece is a little bit bigger than this, I think. Well, maybe not. But let's say their piece was this size, and just picture this not being the back, but the monk's cloth stretched over. And, it would wrap around, right, so you're not seeing it all raggledy-taggledy around the edges, ruffling up. And your piece is punched in here, and let's say you were thinking to yourself, I don't, do I need to take it off? I don't really want to take it off. Do I need another project to do? It could be that you think, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm gonna frame it like this and put it straight on the wall. And maybe I'm going to take a little bit of quilting fabric, or maybe I'm going to take a little bit of paisley or something, and I'm going to sew it with a needle onto my edges to hide. Um, this is tricky to hide, the bars, right? You could do something like that to just frame it on the stretcher frame. Um, that could work too, right? That would be a very simple thing too. I could do one of those and do a video of that too. That would be a really, sewing 101 kind of a project. That could be a lot of fun. So there's lots of options here. I'm just trying to think of ways to make life easier. That's kind of the story of my life. I'm trying to, for all of us, trying to make life a bit easier. Sharon says, I bought some carpet tack strips. I had to cut them to size with a bread knife. Well, those are the best. The thing with those carpet tack strips, as I'm sure you have found out, is they are super expensive. So um, I know a company that used to be in Connecticut. What's that? What's the big broom company? Um, Come on, brooms and vacuums. You know what I mean? They used to do carpet strips, and I don't think they do anymore. I'm not even sure they're in business anymore. I can't believe I can't think of the name. It's like the biggest broom company ever in the U.S. Robin says I took Rebecca Martin's punch stitch class, and she did that for her kits. We bought for the class. Worked like a charm. Yeah, she showed me the process of doing that. It is like incredible. It's many stages. And once we got to like step 7, I was like, oh, I just can't. This is gonna kill me. I would have to price the class very differently to justify all that time. But she is the best, isn't she? She is such a sweetheart. Sharon says, okay, yep, the carpet strips. Yep, that is smart. But now you need a new knife. Well, that's okay. Butter knives, see, it's like easy come, easy go, right? But the carpet strips are so much more valuable. It's crazy. Sparkle thread could help too. Never throw anything away. That's it, Cat's Gallery. Because even that little tiny bit of canvas, remember the art that we were looking at, Grace Collette's work that we're returning to in this episode in 1 minute. You never know what you're going to want to use to apply to your hook drug piece. We're now talking so much more about multimedia pieces um, and applique, applying non-traditional things like her little sort of pincushion pads, beaded things, right? The peyote type things, right onto the hook drug backing or loops themselves. So with that in mind, I am even more reluctant to throw anything out. Not being able at all to anticipate what is going to really grab me next week or this afternoon. So interesting. Lynn says Ace Hardware sells carpet strip. You have got to be kidding. Do they really? Now, is this the carpet strip that is like, is it on a flexible backing like rubber? Or do you mean, I'm looking around because I usually have the wooden carpet strips right here. Or Lynn, do you mean like it looks like a yardstick ruler with nails sticking out? I'm wondering which one it is. Because that would work too. Those are just super sharp, right? And you would have to be really careful. You'd have to nail that onto your wood. That's not impossible. That's like putting nails in reverse. But that would certainly work. You would have to be super, super careful because those are like tiny daggers sticking up, pointing towards you. These are wood with nail. Okay. Okay, so those are like they look like yardsticks, right? And they at intervals, at regular intervals, they are very inexpensive. A nail pointing out towards you. That's how I hang stuff. Like this thing here, right under here, I can feel the nail right there. It just grabs the hoops in a rug. It makes it real easy to hang rugs. Um, let's move on. I just thought of 20 more things to tell you, but let's move on and see what where is the wood one with nails. Yeah. So Barbara, it's this kind of carpet tack. It's like a yardstick with the nail sticking out towards you. So if you were going to do a frame and in a homemade kind of a way, the way that Joanne Wood did it when we looked at those pictures last week was she's already got her wooden frame. She puts her burlap up on it and she hammers nails in at intervals. And in that scenario, the head of the nail is looking at you. So you're seeing the not business side of the nail. But with these carpet tacks, they work great too. But the business side of the nail is sticking out towards you, really sharp, and you're catching your backing fabric onto it the same way you would with the combs that are more traditionally used, the much lower ones that are like hundreds of little pins. It's working that way. They're facing you and you're like putting something against it, but then you do not want to scrape your arm around it because you would have any manner of bad injury with that. Thin wood with nails. Ryan, great to see you. There was a lot of cursing. Oh, I bet. I bet. You got to cover that up immediately. I'm not even sure what you would cover that up with. It would have to be something like, now let's think. If you were going to use those carpet strips and you had the business end of the nails pointed at you, I don't think fleece would do it, right? It would go right through fleece. You'd have to use like, I mean, you can't really use chainmail, right? That doesn't make a lot of sense. But you could do, how about, I was thinking like the material, like to do ironing board covers is a bit more um, um, sort of impermeable, but I think something would still cut through it because you can put pin heads in there, can't you? You can stick pin heads into your ironing board. I wonder what material would make the most sense that you could cover them up with, or make a kind of a sleeve for them. You know, maybe it's worth going to the car store. The steering wheel covers. My brain's not working that well. I'm sorry. I still don't have the doctor or meds or anything in place, so my brain is not working well. But the steering wheel covers. Now, if one of those came kind of padded with kind of a leather or something, that might be something you could cover up really vicious carpet strips with. That could be something. Oh, you use pipe insulation, of course. That is brilliant. There you go. So I'm looking around to see if I have one of those. It's remarkable what I have in this room. Not lucky today. But yeah, the pipe insulation or pool noodles, right? It's hard to find them at this time of year. But if you have any in the garage, you just slice them open, and they want to wrap around something, right? They're like a bracelet that wants to wrap. Just cut them exactly the size to catch all of those nails and put those around the edge. You are then talking about your wrist being at a little bit of a distance to your piece, but it's better than slicing your wrists open on nails. Um, to put it mildly, right? So that would definitely work. On Etsy, you can get blue stripping used on frames. Okay, on Etsy, you can get blue stripping used on frames. Interesting. These are all great suggestions. Oh, you hated them, Lynn. Okay, I can see why they would be clunkers without a doubt. Karen says, why couldn't you staple larger staples into a thin piece of wood? Secure the staple sticks onto your frame. Staple. Okay, let me do that one again. Why couldn't you staple larger staples into a thin piece of wood and secure the stapled sticks on your frame? God, why is my brain not processing that visually? Because I know you always have good ideas, Karen. Pool noodle at the dollar store, at the Dollar Tree store. Now, okay, so Heather has the idea. If you have the Christmas tree shops near you, they usually have that kind of stuff year round. Many stores do have pool noodles and stuff year round because of like vacations, right? And people who go indoor swimming, like at the Y or whatever, like that. It's not impossible for Christmas. Dollar Tree carries pool noodles all year now. Awesome. That's great information. Karen, I'm going to come back to that, hopefully with more clarity in a minute, because I'm sure that you're onto something that makes you are so practical and a fast thinker. I'm sure that is going to make a lot of sense. I'm following the conversation here. Pointy staples up. Pointy staples up. Okay. Now, oh, I see what you mean. And so are you saying what if you did a frame, and in place of the nails you were using staples from behind on a thin piece of wood, and then the backing material would be catching the staples rather than a really sharp nail? Um, I'm thinking about that. It's not impossible. I'm thinking, how thin would the wood have to be for a staple to go through it? Now, there are different kinds of staples, right? So that might not be a thing. How do you get the staple through it without it closing on the other side? Is there a tool to do that? I'm thinking, is the staple strong enough? I don't know what the kind of range of staple products are out there, but I bet there's stronger ones and lighter weight ones. I wonder if like a heavy duty staple is enough to hold your material. I'm also thinking with with frames in general, it usually works best, and this is not going to help with the carpet strips. It usually works best when your comb is wrapped around the edge. Because if you think about it, if you have a flat frame like these, now these are going to be good for punch needle, I think. Um, because hoops are good for punch needle too. We're just punching down into it. There's not quite as much as there could be with rug hooking, pulling up in stress, right, on the frame part of the frame. So with rug hooking, I find it's always easier when my carpet strips, the expensive comb ones, wrap around a little bit, because then every time I'm pulling up, it's putting stress on the four sides, right? And when it's only flat against here, the strips, like flush, and when they don't wrap, the strips are way more likely to come up. Because somehow when they're wrapped around the edge of the frame, the stress is more evenly distributed every single time you pull a loop through and put stress on it. So ideally, you want a kind of a comb that could be flexible, right? That's why the expensive ones are great because you can staple them around the edge. If you're working with carpet strips and tacks and things like that, it can work. It absolutely can work, and it has historically worked. But just be prepared for the idea that if it's flush and not wrapped, it can be a thing that suddenly you see one of your bars or two of your bars loosening because they just cannot handle the constant stress of pulling against those pressure points. So it's tricky. It's tricky. I want to keep having this conversation though because it's worthwhile, and I keep thinking about the ultimate beginner frame. How cheap can it be? How easy can it be made? Can you make it at home? To kind of get this settled once and for all with all of the stuff that we have now, knowing what works really well in a frame, it just seems like frames should be less expensive. And I know a lot of it is manpower, but if we can come up with the ultimate model for a frame and people could just very comfortably, even not super handy people, be making these kinds of frames at home, that would be a great prototype to be able to share. So I want to keep having this conversation and fine tuning it. And I'm going to try some stuff. And when you're trying some stuff, let us know so that we can pool our information. Sharon says, I have an Ashford Rigid head loom. I'm wondering if I would secure the backing. Okay, so you could do that. So you could take the loom frame or a needlepoint frame, which is like the two rollers and the sides, or a quilt frame, which essentially looks the same. You could secure carpet tacks to the top and the bottom. And so you would have north to south, tight as a drum tension that would work for hooking or punch. Then the question becomes, how do I get east to west tension, right? Because you're going to need that too. You can't do flippity floppities on the side. It won't work as well. You'll be working a lot slower and it'll be a lot more difficult. So north to south all set, east to west, what do we do there? You do what like the Grenfell hookers did, right, at the end of the 19th century. You can take, and I see people do this all the time, pantyhose, right? I just looked over there because I had my pantyhose there, I did. But I took them away because I'm putting some pantyhose into the advent calendars. Now I don't have a single pantyhose. What they did to go east to west was take pantyhose and feed it, even if it's like with a tapestry needle, feed a piece of pantyhose, cut it into a strip, you don't need the whole thing, through the edges east and west of your backing, and tie it really tight to the side of the frame at many intervals, right? Depending on, if you've got a needlepoint frame, it's not that tall. Typically, it's about 12 inches or something. You would only maybe do 3. But if you've got a head loom, right, you'd want to put quite a few at intervals so that it pulled east to west too. That is very easy to do, and in that way, you can make any frame work. So, absolutely can be done, and easily too. Oh, maison. I don't want to say this wrong. Pinetus. Maybe Pinetus. That maybe sounds right. Great to see you. You are, oh my God, you're in Barcelona. Oh, you know that song from Company Barcelona? Where you go in Barcelona. Not a famous song, but it's very, very pretty. Good to see you joining live. Great to see you. If you have more ideas, keep going. I'm going to start content, but you keep going with these ideas because these are great ideas. Isn't it funny how we make such it's like a storm in a teacup every time we think about like frames and cutters and all of this stuff. Everything is expensive and everything seems so complicated, right? And so imperative that you have the right things. If you figure out a way to make something work, it's the right thing, right? That's it. That's it. You're there, right? You don't stop at go and what you just blast forward. You figured it out. And those are the things that I want to share the most. So Barbara says, I just found blue gripper strip on Etsy, 40 inches for $19.20. That's really good. Is it the place in the Netherlands, though, where the shipping is like another 30 something? Because I know there's a shop in the Netherlands that carries it, and the prices are very low. But then when you add the shipping, it's the same as. Oh, I almost have the name of the broom company. I feel like it begins with an H. Yeah, I'm watching that a little bit. But let's get looking at the slides that we missed on Friday night that were the Grace Collette slides from the Hooked in the Mountains Green Mountain Rug Show in Montpelier, Vermont, where Kaz and I were having a grand old time rambling through. And I'm going to keep half an eye on the sidebar so I can see what you all are chatting about too. So here we go. Let me figure out where we were. This is the body of Elvis. Remember we left off with Elvis and what, let me just show you Elvis, just so you remember. Elvis is the rooster, and he is a David Galshu design. I'm going to come down a little bit further. Oops, wait a minute. No, that was my favorite. That was the kids at the amusement park. There's Elvis. Nope, not Hoover. No. No, something broom. Ryan says, my gripper frame came from that shop in the Netherlands. Didn't realize that until after purchasing. Amazing quality. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that is like the gripper strip capital of the world, that place in the Netherlands. I wish I had figured that out when I lived in the Netherlands, right? I would have brought back like the motherlode. Sorry, taking a drink of water there. So we were looking at Elvis, and we were talking about on Friday night when we closed, we had talked at length about the difference between Waldoboro as a technique and trapunto. Because trapunto is a sewing technique, Waldoboro is a hooking technique. And the body of Elvis, I'm just kind of flashing through some of the greatest hits of, is raised to such an extent. Golden Fleece Carter. Golden Fleece Carter. Is that a company, Maison? I wonder if that's a company or an Etsy store. Oh, I almost had the broom company again. Dang it. The body of Elvis is raised to such an extent that it's pretty clear that it's not, and it's also sequined, right? So it's not Waldoboro. This is not a hooked process. This is a raised piece of fabric that has been stuffed from behind because a second layer has been applied to the back, and then it's been stuffed to a huge extent. Yes, Golden Fleece is where I got my frame. Okay, good. Good, you two got it. All right, I'm with you now. So we talked about trapunto versus Waldoboro. It was a good conversation because it gave us yet another technique for our bag of tricks to research and to think about. I wonder if anybody looked up trapunto over the weekend to see if it was something that you might want to try on one of your next pieces. Now, Grace Collette is a Pearl McGowan certified teacher, and she is just, for me, she's the toppermost, poppermost, without a doubt. They do, in these certifications, because my buddy Rebecca from Storyteller Wolf is doing her certification now too, all kinds of training in different stitches. So this piece is called Sampler of Unique Stitches. And you can see by looking at it, it is a lot of different techniques in one piece. It's got a braided edge. It's got sort of that basket stitch background around the oval. It's got a chain stitch going around the cameo inset. It's got all kinds of like sort of ruching, Bargello type stitching, a bit of a Jacobean design here, right? But there's a lot of different techniques happening. So it's real eye candy looking at a piece like this. I think there's some Waldoboro in here too, some raised hooking that's been shaped. Barbara says, I do trapunto on my quilts. I use water-soluble thread. Okay, I got to dig in there. Water-soluble thread. So now, Barbara, what is the benefit of using water-soluble thread? Does that mean that the thread goes away? And wouldn't you want the thread to stay so that the sort of blister, the raised part of it, is secure? I'm going to wait for the answer on that one. I'm going to come back to it because that is interesting. That has got to be a great tip. My little brain just doesn't compute. So looking at something like this with shaggy surfaces, with different textures, with very even pile, where'd you go for the certification, Sharon asks. I don't know. That would be something, it's not one place. That would be something I would get in touch with so there's an organization, you could ask somebody through ATHA, you could ask somebody through your local sort of ATHA chapter guild. There is a Pearl McGowan rug hooking newsletter that goes out. I subscribe to that too, and I'm not certified. So I subscribe to their newsletter. That comes out on a regular basis too. I feel like it might be bi-monthly, something like that also. But they have a huge website and they produce their own publication, and it's mostly news about what's going on and information for teachers. They would be the people who you could certainly ask if you're not actively in a chapter and have a go-to person. I would look up Pearl McGowan rug hooking newsletter, and it'll bring that up. And whether or not you want to subscribe, and it's interesting to read. It's not an eye candy publication; it's like a news publication. But I mean, I enjoy it because I can share lots of it with you here. But again, not really an eye candy thing. But those would be the people to ask. And I'm sure that there would be a huge contact list that is regional, just looking at their website. I don't remember it because I went on to order the newsletter, and that was a long time ago. But that would be a good resource. Maybe somebody else has the link to it or something in the thread. KJ Drake, use the air stapler with longer staples to secure the wood strip. Thank you. Use the air stapler. So is that like is the air stapler is a kind of a staple gun? It's specifically called an air stapler. That is really interesting. Susie, good to see you. And Barbara says, Jane, I'll get some quilts sent soon. I'm trying to get all my picks in order. Okay, great. Great. Okay. So, yeah. So let me know. I can also put you in touch, or you can be in touch with Rebecca of Storyteller Wool, because she is in the process of being certified. So I remember just a couple months ago, she's in Colorado, but she came for the meeting that was in Sturbridge, Massachusetts. So I went and picked her up and all that at the airport. And then she stayed with my mom and I, and we got some time together. And then we drove over to Sturbridge, and then she was there for the whole week doing classes. And that's something I think that she's been doing every year while she's training to be certified. So it's not like, it doesn't sound to me, I'm not certified, so I'm not sure, but it doesn't sound to me like a one-time deal. It sounds like an ongoing thing. But you could also reach out to her as a person who's in the process of doing it, and that could be fun too. So they do a lot of stuff like this too, because I was looking at the work that she brought to show when she was doing the certification. There were lots of things that were patterns with samplers of stitches like this. So this is super useful as a practice piece, but it also comes out so beautiful. So she had that hanging up as well. This is a lovely piece that's called Grandpa's Joy. Wait a minute. Let me get my text ready. I forgot I had some of this on text. Remember where I was reading you some stuff last week. Hang on for just a second while I fly through the pictures of the dog from the weekend. He was so extra cute this weekend. This rug is in memory of my grandpa's favorite thing to do, working with his English setters in the farmer's fields, hunting for pheasant. I love English setters. Featured in Celebration 32, this piece is Remember Grace's Cuts, number 3 and number 8. Cut wool and velvet, sequins, beads, and novelty yarns. So this piece is called Grandpa's Joy. Let's look at this close up too, because this combines many of her techniques. This is a great example of another piece that is framed professionally. It gives it such an aura, doesn't it? It really elevates it to its proper place in the world of fine art, right? This is not a crafty piece by any means. This is a very serious, very well done piece. Doesn't she use borders in a magical way? Everything looks like a storybook to me, that when I see Grace's work, everything is just so, the fact that the border is offset a little bit too, kind of like it has a bit of a postcard composition, but that circle in the middle, it's not an oval, it's a circle, and I find it even more interesting than I would an oval. And the curl of the pheasant's tail and the bling of the pheasant, similar to Elvis, all of these sequins, right? All of this applique, and meaning sewing on of. The things that I showed you at the beginning of the show, those are great applique things for rug hooking. That's what got me going. Thinking about Grace Collette, that's what got me going on this cup of cheer Christmas tree. Thinking about what can I add to it? Because it's a Christmas tree, for goodness sake. Every time we put up our Christmas tree, every Christmas, my dad, one of his great jokes that I miss so much now that he's gone, we overdo it. Like, it's disgusting. It's super gauche. Our Christmas trees are over the top. Every square inch is just covered with something stupid, going way back when. We've got all those styrofoam ornaments that we made in grade school, my sister and I too. And we would finally finish decorating the Christmas tree. And he would be, sitting on the couch having a cocktail through the whole thing, listening to like Bing Crosby songs on the record player. And and we would shut the lights off and turn the Christmas tree on. And I'm not going to say exactly what he said because there was a bad word in there, but we would go, well, how does it look? Dad, do you like how it looks? And he said it would look like a blank, blank Christmas tree, which was a joke. And he meant like, God, it looks so gauche. It's so tacky. It's so over the top. But it was the standing joke every year. And so I have that built in. How can I make my Christmas tree really look like a Christmas tree? And I was thinking back to these slides from Friday night. Thank you, Karen. I can see Karen's going to post a link there. Um, or maybe you have. Wait, let me scroll down. I think I might not be current. I was thinking back to these sequins and things in the conversation that I heard Grace having, saying with the sequins, you're limited to the colors that they have. But then again, remember about eBay and Etsy and all of this older stuff. Make sure if you are getting supplies, Christmas supplies and Christmas bling that is vintage or antique from eBay, Etsy, or anywhere, be sure to wash your hands and not be eating while you're using it, because there's like a high mica content with some of this stuff. And I never know if there's a mercury content with some of this older stuff. All of that stuff was present in like earlier decorations to give it that super shine, that impossible shine. So be careful with handling this stuff. I think it's probably fine to handle. You could even put like a little pair of gloves on, but make sure you're not like eating while you're applying it if it's very old and we don't know what the content of the metals is, or the mica, or any of that stuff. So let's look at some more pictures of Grandpa's Joy, a little bit closer up. That's a little bit out of focus. I'm sorry about that. But you see there's one of those kinds of pincushion things that she's attached to it, always in a regular shape, usually a printed piece of fabric or velvet, right? She really goes, she puts the pedal down all the way to the floor with the applique part of her projects. And it is like nothing I have ever seen before. And this is a composition that in the middle, it looked a bit Van Gogh, didn't it? It looked a bit like his haystacks, very, very mellow, very neutral, very mellow. And in great contrast, the body of Grandpa's Joy, the pheasant, right? So do you see the sort of Van Gogh look of the background? Part of it is the colors, but also the subject, right? This endless like golden field. But how well this pheasant stands out in contrast to, a very kind of, I don't want to say flat scene, but a very understated scene. And in the corners, you can see she's got some bling on the flowers. She's got the sort of ruched, big fat, I don't know if that's velvet or chenille or what, in the leaves. It's got a very three-dimensional puff, all of them. KJ Drake says, you can get those gripper strips in the U.S. You can. They're just, we have yet to find a place where they are inexpensive. And if you are near, this is going to be a wind up if you're not, but if you are near New Hampshire and the Door Mill store, DORR, right? That's like one of the sort of meccas for rug hookers. When you go in the store, they always have bags of gripper strips for sale that are like super inexpensive. But in one bag, there might be 3 or 4 wound up, like cinnamon roll, wound up pieces of different gripper strips, and they have different counts. So some of them, the pins are spaced out more, others are more dense. There's more pins per inch. They're not the same, right? They're all mismatched. But if you're making a frame for you, who cares? It's going to grip, isn't it? So that is the bargain in gripper strips. But they don't sell those online. You have to get those in the store. As far as I know, last time I checked, they don't sell those online. You have to get them in the store in person. So if you're planning to take a trip to the Door Mill store, that would be a place to get them very economically. Now I'm wondering again, because I have those somewhere. I'll show them to you. I have a bunch of them from the Door Mill store. And I can't really use them either because, number one, I don't make frames. I buy them and I resell them. One of the girls in my Atha chapter, her husband makes them. Even if I did make them myself, I wouldn't put them out with like mismatched combs, as stupid as that sounds, because I'd feel like it wasn't quite right. But if you're making one for yourself and no one's going to judge you, or, it would be a good resource because they are super inexpensive at the store. And I know that doesn't help 99% of the people out there, but for the few of you who are in New England, that could be a good stop for you in the near future. Just hold on just a second. Yep, there we go. So flying through these slides here because it is getting late. So this is one of the ones that was under glass. This is the one Kaz was talking about the other day. Um, Desiderata. So this is based on a poem, again, under glass. So we're going to do our best to look at this piece. Um, this appeared, I think, in Rug Hooking magazine. And I know we've pulled it up before and remarked on it because it's extraordinary. So, to love and be loved is the greatest joy on earth. Let's see how close in we can get to this piece with the glass in front. It does give it an aura, having this kind of glass. If you're hearing those loud bangs, that's Jamie next door. He's lifting weights and he's an enormous person, very strong. Um, let's look around the edges of this because she does, it has a bit under glass, it has a bit of a Victorian hair wreath quality for me. Does it have that for you too? Where you get these clusters of flowers. What a beautiful child in this, right? You get clusters of flowers around the border. You know what I mean? And some of them have like a little bit of Waldeboro, a little bit of raised effect, beading, right? So it strikes me as having the feel of, you know, one of the, if you can picture a Victorian hair piece, like a memorial piece that's done by weaving someone's hair into a wreath shape or a circle with lots of little beads and things sewn onto it as a way to remember that person in one of these Victorian traditions that has to do with mourning. Grace wrote of this rug, Desiderata. This rug was inspired by the poem Desiderata by Max Ehrmann. That's Ehrmann. I'm going to read you part of that poem in just a minute. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. This is my granddaughter, age 1.5, and her new puppy. Novelty yarns, buttons, Waldeboro, number 3 cut wool, all number 3, featured in celebration number 25. If you feel like you need inspiration today, I won't read you the whole thing, but Desiderata is a beautiful poem, again by Max Ehrmann. And much of it would be familiar to you. Go placidly amid the noise and haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence, as far as possible without surrender. And then by category, be on good terms with all people, and listen to others. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Take kindly the counsel of the years. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune. Be gentle with yourself. So it goes on, and under each of these categories is like a poetic text. So it's a beautiful, very inspiring poem. A great source to pull from for a rug like this is that Saturn. Let's see, was that Saturn? Let us see. Let me come out of here and come over here. Yeah, I guess it is Saturn. Interesting. Interesting. I think that's Earth in the front and Saturn in the background. You know, that's interesting. I don't get the planetary reference, and it wasn't on the card. I didn't ask her about that. I wish I had. But isn't that neat? It gives it that bit of a Little Prince. Remember the book The Little Prince? A little bit of that feel. Was the Little Prince on Saturn, I wonder? I'm just picturing what that book looked like, the illustrations. Um, beautiful, beautiful child. So, and then we've got Flying High. This is another story rug. I think all of her rugs are story rugs. Flying High. I think this is her grandson. Let me see what she said about this. Flying High. My grandson worked 6 years to get sponsored in skateboarding, and that deserved a rug. Novelty yarns, beads, fibers, sari silk, transition dyed, number 3 cut wool, all number 3 cut wool. So another absolute beauty. I love how she does rugs of her family, right? I mean, it's just all so incredibly cozy. But this is such an energetic composition, right? He's almost like a firecracker in the sky. It looks like a cool kind of modern cityscape underneath him with a reflection. It's very, very contemporary. I love all the swirls, right? It has a bit of an 80s feel. The Little Prince was on the moon. Thank you, Karen. It has that planet, that adding the planets gives it that feel. It was a cool piece, right? Yes, it is an air pressure stapler and many lengths of staples, but you can just a hand staple gun as well. Okay, with the longer staples. Okay, well that's good information because And I guess you can get staples that are both long and quite firm, right? If there's a variety, I would guess that you could get that because you would need, if you were going to go that route, it does make sense. You would need, I would think, a lot of staples and ones that were not going to bend too easily. You don't need the weeping willow staples, right? You need like the big tall oak staples that are going to stand up straight and hang on there like the pins in the combs, right? But that's not a bad idea, Karen. I like that. That's interesting. We should do some experiment videos. Does it work or not? Like those TV shows where they used to debunk urban myths and things like that. We should do some debunking videos, right? Let's look at this rug flying high a little bit closer up. So beautiful reflections here. You remember the reflection on one of her other rugs that we looked at on Friday. I think it was Geronimo, the grandson jumping into the water. That was extraordinary. That was just extraordinary. She is excellent at reflections. This is just such a city feel to me, right? It's super urban, it's super fun, it's fresh, it's modern. It's just a cool rug. Very, very different. Very different style for her too, isn't it? You can see she's got stars sewn in there. She's doing her different effects, um, different sorts of finishes. Remember the unique sampler of stitches. She's using some of those as well as applying stars, right? That looks a lot like these stars that I just found at Joann's, doesn't it? And some of them are, man, this camera is really something else. Yeah, these all look like they're sew on, but I'm sure there are some that have kind of the invisible thing and not that giant circle that you would sew on the charm part. But yeah, stuff like this, you can find it anywhere, right? You probably find it in your hardware drawer or your junk drawer in your kitchen, right? And this is, I think, are nursery rhymes also copyright free? Yes. So, Karen, in most cases, nursery rhymes are copyright free because of their age. I'm trying to think of what the exceptions would be for something like that. I don't think there are exceptions, to be honest. Um, I mean, if we're talking about traditional nursery rhymes that are like 2, 3, 400 years old, yeah, those would absolutely be copyright free. I'm trying to think of ones that would be taken for some specific reason, and I can't, off the top of my head, think of any that would be a problem of that age. Of course, people write new nursery rhymes. I mean, Shel Silverstein wrote a ton of nursery rhymes, and those would not. But the old ones would be, just like ideas from fairy tales. So if you're thinking about a rug with text, that should not be a problem with a traditional nursery rhyme. That should not be a problem at all. And the same thing goes as with the fairy tale rugs. When you're working on a rug or a composition that the premise of it is, for example, a well-known fairy tale or nursery rhyme, you're off to a good start. Because if you say like Jack and Jill, we, for the most part, all know what you're talking about. And we can picture them falling down the hill with the buckets flying and the water and the well and all of this stuff. And the story is already there. So you already have like all of these tropes to pull from that we already know. And that's why it's fun to play with traditional stories and poems because the foundation has been laid in our minds. Of course, we all have different associations with the different stories, but it is good to pull from a place that we know already because you don't have to lay the groundwork down for us. The story is already there, and you're able to make jokes and things, right? So much fun. So much fun. So I am getting super late now. Um, I I took a picture of this plaque and it was completely out of focus. And I forgot the name of it. I wonder if anybody remembers because we also saw this in Rug Cooking Magazine. I don't think it had the word raccoon in it. I feel like it was a reference to the raccoon foraging or begging because there's the big shadowy raccoon that is kind of like um, um, ghostly figure, main motif, looking at the campfire, but then the actual raccoon on the bottom left that is approaching with high hopes, right? And there's Pup again. Remember, we've seen Pup in a couple of the rugs, but I just loved this rug. It is a Grace Collette rug. I just could not read what the title was. My hands must have been that shaky, or maybe somebody bumped me at that moment, or who knows. But yeah, so I don't have the plaque for this one, but I wanted to fly through these images. And you can see how with these little flowers and things like the ground covering, she's pulling the loops up higher. It's still a number 3, but she's pulling them up higher. And it's giving a lot of texture, isn't it? That real tactile mossy kind of a feel when you get those long, um, oops, sorry, didn't mean to do that. What's going on here? There we go. Lots of variety, right? Her pieces have lots of variety. There's a lot of things jumping forward at you, and that is fun. Just the image of the dad and the son with the marshmallows, just such happiness, such coziness, such memories, right? And the campfire, you see how there's some actual like gold colored thread in the center of the campfire? Absolutely beautiful. I remember last year, Colleen for the rug exchange, I think it was, did a campfire. It was the best fire I had ever seen. I love to see a good fire in rug hooking because it's an illusion, isn't it? It's a real illusion. Have you ever see the Waldeboro that's here too? You see how under the log there are like rocks and things that are done Waldeboro, very high relief, not Trapunto, definitely Waldeboro. How do we know? Because it looks like a half of a pom pom. We can tell that it's a textile. It's not cloth. It's actually hooking that's been shaped down. And here's the larger raccoon, who's kind of the theme of the piece. Has anybody tried those things for the fire? They're like packets that you don't open, you throw into the fire, and it makes the fire rainbow colors. I have not tried that yet. I bought some for the winter in hopes of using them in the backyard with the kids because I thought, ooh, if I could get some cool photos of those things thrown on the fire and making rainbow flames, I might try to hook a fire. I mean, it's not going to come out as good as Grace Collette or as my buddy Colleen, but it would be cool. So um, just thinking about that, wondering if you've tried that yet. So I'm right at the end of the slideshow. Let me just get to the end so that we can reset ourselves here. And on Wednesday, we'll move to some of the other artists at the rug show. So this is the partridge. Let me see what this one, I think this is another one I did not have. Yeah, I did not have the plaque for this. I was really um, distracted at this rug show. That's like putting it mildly. I was super distracted. So I missed the plaque on this, but again, this was in the Grace Collette area. This has text on it. Keep a garden bough in your heart, and a singing bird will come. Oh, that is such a nice kind of play on if you build it, he will come or they will come. I like this much better. It has that illumination quality again. It's got that fantasy landscape. It almost looks like a Tolkien landscape, right? This wacky horizon. Oh, Sherry, good to see you. Grandkids, yay. We're coming to the end, but it was a good episode, and I'm glad that you logged on. So we're just looking at the partridge a little bit because it was another beautiful piece. This has got to be all number threes. I don't see any presence of the number eights in this one. But I thought it has such a lovely feel to it, very mellow again. Keep a green bough in your heart, and a singing bird will come. So that's the text that was in the rug as well. That was above. I got a good picture of the thing above, right, but not a good picture of the plaque. And, I like to show you the way that people have hooked text close up because everybody's different. So she's hooking it like really on a grid. She's keeping very squared letters, very digital looking, right? And it works really well. It creates a really clear graphic for text. You always want your text to be clear, right? Because if it's not, it almost looks like what do you call a clock? I guess it's digital, right? It's digital. Where, there if you look at the components, like the full component would be the number 8. And if you take away the different bars at different intervals, it creates every other number. You can do that with the alphabet too. And it's a good way to, I think that was the end. It was a good way to, oh no, not the end, to hook your numbers and your letters. This was another piece that I failed to document that was in Grace Collette's area. It had a huge piece of stained glass in the middle and a lot of Waldeboro around the edges. I thought it was extraordinary. Another kind of a sampler of techniques. I think I got some close-ups of this one too. So you can see with the Waldeboro, the small number 3s coming up and they are shaped, right? She has got a lot of different stitches here. This is full blast Pearl McGowan sampler of stitches, just in a different context, in a different composition. And I loved the paprika. This is the color of my dining room at the moment. This is the color of the living room where I grew up in our growing up house. I love how she has combined paprika with this kind of blue bonnet color. Light blue lilac, super unexpected. And stained glass being applied to the piece this way, absolutely amazing. Oh, Sherry, me too. These colors are crazy. Do you see how she has embedded a very subtle paisley motif in a wider cut? Do you see how She's got the faint outline in number 3 of a paisley that's done in a number 8, because she only does the 3s and the 8s. I think that's really striking. It gives such a feel, right? And when you step back from it, it is quite hard to see the um, the paisleys, but you get a feel for them being there. It's a great technique. So this is a different kind of a sampler of techniques, and this is a close-up of the stained glass piece itself. I thought it was just so striking. I think this is the last piece from this, yeah, from that series. So to say the least, Kaz and I were parked at the Grace Collette section of the Hooked in the Mountains exhibit for quite some time because it was just extraordinary. It was like a feast for the eyes. I'll tell you, I've said this before, I am not, I hope that I'm an artsy person to some extent, but I am not good looking at stuff for a long time. It's not like my body gets tired, it's like my brain gets tired. And it's like I fill with inspiration, and then my cup is filled, my cup runneth over, and I'm ready to go. So it's always hard for me to see something like this size of a rug show because I know I'm going to have that feeling of being just tapped out, and I don't want to miss anything. So it was like I was really forcing myself at the show to keep documenting because I know that I wanted to share what I collected. But it was hard because this was one of those times in Grace Collette's area that in an ideal world, right, I should have stayed over. I should have been there for a few days. I would have been there all day. Like I would have just been in that one area all day, soaking it in and following my thoughts through rather than having this weird character on my shoulder saying, in my mind, hurry up, hurry up. There's like hundreds more rugs. You have to get a move on. It was so much. It was so much. And of course, different people and different things fill up our different cups. But for me, this was like the ultimate. I mean, it really was the ultimate. I was just in absolute heaven being in the Grace Collette area there, just surrounded. Everything that caught my eye was just um, so inspirational. So I hope you felt that way too about looking at the pictures of it after the fact. I hope I could never do justice to the rugs that we looked at on Friday and today, but I do my best. And on Wednesday, when I come back to you at noon Eastern Standard Time, we will be looking at some of the other rugs at the Green Mountain Show. So this is a big to be continued. And I want to remind you again, and Sherry says, you also get overwhelmed the same way. Uh, Absolutely, especially if you get too much inspiration at the same time. That's the thing, isn't it? Because you're so tapped out. You feel like wrung out. You feel like squeezed tea bag. Like my heart feels like a squeezed tea bag. I just can't. I can't absorb anything more, and then I'm frustrated, and then I get a negative feeling rather than staying, floaty and high. I feel like I'm so frustrated. I feel like a squeezed tea bag, but it's hard. It's hard to get that balance because you want to see everything and drink it all in, and you don't want to miss a thing, right? Feel like a real little child at these things. So I will be back with you on Wednesday for us to look at more of the rugs from the Hooked in the Mountain show. And remember to start sending in. A lot of you have, but if you mean to, send me your rugs for gallery night this coming Friday. We are dying to see your rug. And be looking out on ribbon candy hooking. I'm going to do a video as soon as we log off. And I'm going to be sewing on my charms to the cup of cheer. And let's see how that goes. I'm also going to be evolving an idea for the rug hooking equivalent of that Christmas tree jewelry pin situation. So I'm going to be looking at some examples of those, and I'm going to figure out how to translate that immediately to a rug hooking um, medium. So let's see how that goes. Hit me with all your ideas to ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com. I will